The rain hammered against the windows of Marcus Chen's corner office on the 42nd floor of Chen Technologies. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the city below through the floor-to-ceiling windows. At 35, Marcus had built an empire from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar corporation that dominated the artificial intelligence market. His sharp suits, expensive watches, and cold demeanor had earned him respect and fear in equal measure throughout Silicon Valley. The device sat on his mahogany desk like a metallic puzzle waiting to be solved. Project Prometheus, as his team called it, was supposed to revolutionize quantum computing. 3 years and $200 million had gone into its development, yet it remained stubbornly non-functional. The prototype was roughly the size of a briefcase, covered in intricate circuits and components that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The government contract attached to this project was worth $5 billion, but the deadline was approaching fast, and his best engineers had failed to make it work. Marcus turned away from the window as his assistant knocked on the door. Sarah entered, her usual confidence replaced by visible nervousness. She had worked for Marcus for 5 years and knew his moods better than anyone. When he was frustrated, the entire building seemed to hold its breath. "Sir, the engineering team is here for the final report," Sarah announced, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded curtly and walked to his desk. The team of 12 engineers filed in, each one looking more defeated than the last. These were supposed to be the brightest minds in the industry, hand-picked from top universities and rival companies. Yet they stood before him like students facing an angry principal. Dr. Peterson, the lead engineer, stepped forward. His gray hair was disheveled, and dark circles under his eyes told the story of countless sleepless nights. "Mr. Chen, we've exhausted every possible approach. The quantum field generators are functioning perfectly. The processing units are operational, but something is preventing the core synchronization. It's as if the device is missing a crucial component or algorithm that we can't identify." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Dr. Peterson, I didn't invest $200 million to hear about what you can't do. I need solutions, not excuses. Sir, with respect, this technology is unlike anything we've ever encountered. The specifications seem to require knowledge that doesn't exist in current scientific literature. It's almost as if whoever designed this had access to information beyond our current understanding." The room fell silent. Marcus had heard whispers about the device's origins, rumors that it was reverse-engineered from something not of this world, but he had dismissed such talk as conspiracy theories. What mattered was making it work and securing the government contract that would cement his company's dominance for decades to come. "You're all dismissed," Marcus said coldly. "Clear out your offices. I'll find people who can actually solve problems instead of making excuses." As the engineers filed out, Marcus slumped into his leather chair. Failure was not something he accepted easily. Growing up poor in the streets of San Francisco's Chinatown, he had clawed his way to success through sheer determination and ruthlessness. Every setback had only made him stronger, but this device was different. It seemed to mock his efforts, remaining as mysterious as the day he first laid eyes on it. Sarah approached his desk cautiously. "Sir, there might be another option." Marcus looked up, his dark eyes focusing on her with laser intensity. "What option?" "There's a repair shop in the Mission District. The owner is just a kid, maybe 17 or 18, but he has a reputation for fixing things that others can't. Electronics, computers, even some experimental military equipment that soldiers bring him unofficially. They call him the miracle worker." Marcus scoffed. "You want me to trust a teenage repair shop owner with a $200 million prototype? Have you lost your mind?" "Sir, I know it sounds crazy, but my cousin works in Army procurement. He told me about this kid who fixed a classified drone system that Lockheed Martin couldn't repair. The boy didn't even ask what it was or how it worked. He just looked at it for an hour and made it functional again." The CEO leaned back in his chair, considering the absurdity of the situation. His pride recoiled at the idea of seeking help from some street kid, but his practical mind recognized that he was out of options. The government deadline was only 2 weeks away, and failure would not only cost him the contract but potentially destroy his company's reputation. "What's the kid's name?" Marcus asked reluctantly. "Alex Rivera. His shop is called Rivera Electronics. It's not much to look at from the outside, but apparently he works miracles." Marcus stared at the device on his desk. The soft blue glow emanating from its core seemed to pulse rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Something about it had always unsettled him, as if it were alive and watching. The rational part of his mind dismissed such thoughts. But late at night, when he worked alone in his office, he could swear the device was communicating with something beyond his understanding. "Set up a meeting," Marcus said finally. "But I want complete discretion. If word gets out that I'm consulting a teenage repair boy about Project Prometheus, my reputation will be ruined." Sarah nodded and hurried out of the office. Marcus remained alone with the device, his reflection distorted in its metallic surface. He had built his empire on the principle that every problem had a solution, and every solution had a price. Now he was about to discover whether a poor boy from the Mission District held the key to unlocking the greatest technological mystery of his career. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the city clean as if preparing for something new to begin. Marcus Chen had no idea that his decision to seek help from Alex Rivera would not only solve his immediate problem, but also uncover secrets that would change everything he thought he knew about technology, power, and his own past. The device on his desk pulsed once more, as if acknowledging the momentous choice that had just been made. The black limousine looked completely out of place on the narrow streets of the Mission District. Marcus Chen sat in the back seat, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the colorful murals and weathered buildings that lined the sidewalks. He had insisted on coming personally, despite Sarah's suggestion to send a representative. Something about this situation demanded his direct involvement, though he couldn't quite explain why. Rivera Electronics occupied a narrow storefront squeezed between a taqueria and a laundromat. The faded sign above the door looked like it had been painted decades ago, and the windows were covered with old newspapers and cardboard. Marcus felt a surge of doubt as his driver opened the door. How could a place like this hold the solution to his problems? The bell above the door chimed weakly as Marcus entered the shop. The smell of soldering iron and electronic components filled his nostrils, mixing with the aroma of coffee and something that might have been incense. The cramped space was filled with towers of old computers, tangled wires, and devices in various states of repair. It looked like organized chaos, but Marcus's trained eye could see an underlying system to the apparent madness. "Be right with you," called a voice from behind a partition of hanging circuit boards. Marcus waited, his impatience growing with each passing second. He was about to leave when a young man emerged from the back of the shop, wiping his hands on a grease-stained towel. Alex Rivera looked exactly as Sarah had described him, maybe 18 years old, with dark hair that needed cutting and clothes that had seen better days. But his eyes were what caught Marcus's attention. They were sharp, intelligent, and seemed to see more than they should. "Can I help you?" Alex asked, his voice polite but cautious. He had clearly noticed the expensive suit and watch, marking Marcus as someone who didn't belong in his neighborhood. "I'm Marcus Chen. My assistant called yesterday about a consultation." Alex's demeanor shifted slightly, becoming more reserved. "Right, the tech CEO. Your assistant was pretty mysterious about what you needed. Said it was confidential." Marcus looked around the cluttered shop, his doubt intensifying. "Is there somewhere private we can talk?" Alex shrugged and led him to a small office in the back. The space was cramped but clean, with a desk covered in technical manuals and a wall lined with certificates and commendations that Marcus hadn't expected to see. Several were from military contractors, others from universities. One was signed by a general Marcus recognized from news reports. "Look, Mr. Chen, I know you probably think this place is beneath you," Alex said as they sat down, "but I'm good at what I do. Really good. If you've got something that needs fixing, I can probably help. If you're here to waste my time because you think it's funny to mess with the poor kid, then please leave now." The directness surprised Marcus. He was used to people fawning over him, trying to impress him or gain his favor. This teenager was treating him like any other customer, and somehow that earned his respect. "I have a device," Marcus began carefully. "My engineers can't make it work. I've been told you have experience with unusual electronics." "Define unusual." Marcus hesitated. The non-disclosure agreements alone were worth more than this kid probably made in a year. But desperation had brought him here, and desperation demanded risks. "It's a quantum computing prototype, government contract. The technology is advanced, beyond what we currently understand." Alex leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with those unnervingly intelligent eyes. "How advanced are we talking? Experimental military stuff or something else entirely?" "Something else entirely." The young man was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming on the desk. "Mr. Chen, can I ask you something? How did you really hear about me? Because my reputation isn't exactly something that gets around in CEO circles." Marcus found himself being more honest than he had intended. "My assistant has a cousin in Army procurement. He mentioned you'd fixed some classified equipment that major contractors couldn't handle. The drone system." Alex nodded. "That was interesting work. The technology was definitely not standard military issue, more sophisticated than anything I'd seen before." He paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. "Mr. Chen, there are things in this world that don't fit into neat categories. Technologies that seem to come from somewhere else or some other time. If your device is one of those things, then yeah, I might be able to help." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What makes you think it might be?" "Because normal problems don't bring billionaire CEOs to repair shops in the Mission District," Alex said simply. "And because you look scared, Mr. Chen, really scared. What exactly are you dealing with?" Before Marcus could answer, Alex stood up and walked to a safe hidden behind a bookshelf. He opened it and withdrew a small device that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was clearly related to the technology in Project Prometheus. The same otherworldly design, the same subtle energy signature. "Where did you get that?" Marcus whispered. "My father left it to me," Alex said quietly, "along with some other things and a lot of questions I've never been able to answer. He told me before he died that someday I'd meet someone who had similar technology, and that when that day came, I'd understand why he taught me what he taught me." Marcus stared at the device in Alex's hands. The young man activated it with a series of touches that seemed impossible to memorize, and it began to glow with the same blue light as Project Prometheus. But this device was clearly functional, its energy output steady and controlled. "Your father," Marcus said slowly. "What was his name?" "Dr. Eduardo Rivera. He used to work for the government, but he never told me exactly what he did, just that it involved things most people weren't ready to understand." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Dr. Eduardo Rivera had been one of the original scientists involved in the DE project that had eventually led to the development of Project Prometheus. According to the classified files Marcus had access to, Dr. Rivera had disappeared 15 years ago, taking crucial research data with him. The government had assumed he was dead. "Alex," Marcus said carefully, "I think your father and I have more in common than you realize, and I think you're the only person who can help me understand what we're dealing with." Alex studied Marcus for a long moment, then slowly returned the device to the safe. "Mr. Chen, if I help you with this, I need to know everything. No secrets, no lies, no corporate double talk. If this technology is what I think it is, then we're both in more danger than you probably realize." Marcus nodded slowly. He had come here looking for a simple repair job, but it was becoming clear that nothing about this situation was simple. Alex Rivera wasn't just some gifted teenager. He was the son of a missing scientist, the inheritor of knowledge that could change the world, and possibly the only person alive who understood the true nature of Project Prometheus. Outside the shop, thunder rumbled overhead, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that forces beyond his understanding were beginning to converge. The game had just become much more complicated and much more dangerous. The Chen Technologies building seemed different to Marcus as he led Alex through the executive entrance at midnight. The normally bustling headquarters was eerily quiet, with only security guards and the occasional night shift programmer visible in the distance. Marcus had insisted on complete secrecy, arranging for Alex to examine Project Prometheus when the building was nearly empty. Alex carried a worn leather messenger bag that had belonged to his father, filled with tools that looked nothing like standard electronics equipment. Some appeared handmade. Others seemed to incorporate the same mysterious technology as the device he had shown Marcus earlier. The young man moved with quiet confidence through the marble lobby, apparently unimpressed by the obvious displays of wealth and power surrounding him. "Tell me about the original acquisition," Alex said as they rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. "How did your company end up with this technology?" Marcus hesitated. The truth involved classified information and government contracts that carried severe penalties for disclosure. But he had committed to complete honesty, and something about Alex's calm demeanor made him feel that normal rules might not apply to their situation. 3 years ago, A government contractor approached us about reverse engineering a recovered device. They claimed it was experimental technology from a foreign nation, but the specifications they provided didn't match any known scientific principles. The contract was worth too much to refuse, and they assured us that our top engineers could handle the work. But you never believed the foreign nation story, Alex observed. No, Marcus admitted. The technology was too advanced, too alien. My engineers compared it to trying to reverse engineer a smartphone using medieval tools and knowledge. Every breakthrough only revealed how much we didn't understand. They reached Marcus's office, and Alex's attention immediately focused on Project Prometheus. The device sat on the mahogany desk exactly where Marcus had left it, its blue glow casting strange shadows on the walls. Alex approached it slowly, his expression shifting from curiosity to recognition, to something that might have been fear. My God, Alex whispered. This is it. This is what my father was working on when he disappeared. Alex opened his messenger bag and withdrew a journal bound in cracked leather. The pages were filled with diagrams, equations, and notes written in multiple languages. Marcus recognized some of the symbols from the classified files he had reviewed, but others were completely unfamiliar. Your father kept records, Marcus observed. More than records, instructions, warnings. Alex flipped through the pages, his face growing more serious with each turn. Mr. Chen, this technology isn't just advanced, it's not from here. Not from our world, not from our time. My father was part of a team that was studying recovered artifacts, trying to understand their purpose and origin. Marcus felt the room grow colder. Artifacts from where? Alex looked up from the journal, his young face bearing an expression far too mature for his years. My father called it the event. 60 years ago, something crashed in the New Mexico desert. Not a weather balloon, not an experimental aircraft, something else entirely. The government recovered multiple artifacts, and they've been studying them ever since, trying to unlock their secrets. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sank into his chair, staring at Project Prometheus with new understanding. We've been trying to reverse engineer alien technology. Not just alien, Alex corrected. According to my father's notes, the artifacts seem to be components of a larger system. A communication array, or possibly a navigation beacon. The individual pieces are useless on their own, but when combined properly, they create something incredible. Alex began unpacking his tools, each one designed for purposes Marcus couldn't begin to guess. The young man moved with practiced precision, clearly following procedures he had memorized long ago. As he worked, he continued sharing information from his father's journal. Dr. Rivera wasn't just a scientist on the project, he was the lead researcher. He made breakthrough after breakthrough, until he realized what the government was really planning to do with the technology. They didn't just want to study it, they wanted to weaponize it. Weaponize how? Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Alex attached one of his mysterious devices to Project Prometheus, and immediately the artifact's glow intensified. Energy readings on Marcus's monitoring equipment spiked beyond anything they had previously recorded. Think about it, Mr. Chen. If you could master technology that allows instant communication across any distance, or navigation through space and time itself, what would that mean for military applications? The answer was terrifying. Instant communication would revolutionize warfare, making coordination across vast distances effortless. Navigation technology that transcended normal space-time could enable instantaneous troop deployment or reconnaissance anywhere in the universe. In the wrong hands, such capabilities could make one nation unstoppable. That's why your father disappeared, Marcus realized. He saw what they were planning and took the research with him. He tried to hide the most crucial components and data, spreading them across multiple locations and people. But he knew they'd eventually piece enough together to continue the work. Alex's device beeped softly, and Project Prometheus began to pulse with renewed energy. That's where you come in, Mr. Chen. You were never supposed to succeed completely. Your company was chosen because you had the resources and expertise to get close to a breakthrough, but not enough specialized knowledge to actually achieve one. Marcus felt manipulated, used. They wanted us to fail. They wanted you to do the preliminary work, to refine the basic systems and eliminate the obvious problems. Then, when you inevitably failed to achieve full functionality, they'd bring in their own specialists to complete the project. You were always expendable. The room fell silent except for the humming of Alex's equipment. Marcus watched as the young man worked with tools and techniques that seemed to defy physics, making adjustments to Project Prometheus that his team of expert engineers had never imagined possible. Within an hour, the device was displaying energy patterns that looked stable and controlled. "It's working," Marcus breathed. Alex nodded grimly. "The basic functions are now operational. But Mr. Chen, activating this device will send a signal. If there are others like it, they'll know this one is now functional. And if my father was right about what this technology really is, then we may have just announced our presence to something that's been waiting a very long time to hear from us." Before Marcus could respond, every screen in his office lit up with incoming messages. Emergency alerts from his security team, urgent calls from government contacts, and most ominously, a simple text message from an unknown number. "We know you have it working. We're coming." Alex was already packing his tools, moving with urgent efficiency. "Mr. Chen, we need to leave." Right now, there are people who have been watching this project from the beginning, and they won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who gets in their way. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had stumbled into. His simple business problem had become something much larger and more dangerous than he could have imagined. "Where can we go? If the government is involved, if they have this much power..." "My father prepared for this day," Alex said, shouldering his messenger bag. "He left me more than just instructions and tools. He left me allies, resources, and most importantly, knowledge about who can be trusted and who can't." He looked directly at Marcus, his young face showing determination and courage that put the older man to shame. "The question is, Mr. Chen, are you ready to learn the truth about what you've been involved in? Because once we leave this building, there's no going back to your old life." Outside, Marcus could hear the distinctive sound of helicopters approaching. Time was running out, and he had to make a choice that would determine not just his fate, but possibly the fate of technology that could change the entire world. The emergency stairwell echoed with their footsteps as Marcus and Alex descended 42 floors in darkness. Marcus had never imagined he would be fleeing his own building like a fugitive, but the sound of helicopters circling overhead left no doubt that their situation was desperate. Alex moved with surprising agility, clearly more comfortable with physical challenges than Marcus, who was already breathing heavily by the 20th floor. "There's a service tunnel that connects to the parking garage," Alex explained as they reached the basement level. "My father mapped all the underground passages in this part of the city. He knew that someday someone might need to disappear quickly." They emerged into the parking garage to find Marcus's driver waiting nervously beside the limousine. The man looked relieved to see his employer, but his expression changed to confusion when he noticed Alex and the tension in Marcus's demeanor. "Sir, there are unmarked vehicles surrounding the building," the driver reported. "I was instructed to wait, but I think we should leave immediately." Alex shook his head. "The limousine is too conspicuous and they'll be tracking it. We need a different vehicle." Marcus felt a surge of frustration. He was used to controlling situations, making decisions based on complete information and careful analysis. Now he was following the instructions of a teenager, abandoning everything he had worked to build based on stories about alien technology and government conspiracies. "This is insane," Marcus muttered. "I should call my lawyers, contact the board of directors. There has to be a legal way to handle this." Alex grabbed Marcus by the shoulders, forcing the older man to look directly at him. "Mr. Chen, listen to me carefully. The people who are coming for us don't care about lawyers or boards of directors. They've been operating in secret for 60 years, and they have resources and authority that exist outside normal legal channels. If we don't leave right now, we'll both disappear and Project Prometheus will be used for purposes your father never intended." "My father?" Marcus said, confused. "What does my father have to do with any of this?" Alex released him, his expression shifting to surprise. "You don't know, do you? You really don't know who your father was?" Before Marcus could respond, the sound of vehicles screeching into the garage made further conversation impossible. Alex grabbed a set of keys from a maintenance worker's jacket hanging nearby and led Marcus to a battered pickup truck parked in the corner. As they drove through the garage's emergency exit, Marcus caught a glimpse of black SUVs converging on his limousine. They drove through empty streets, Alex navigating with the confidence of someone who knew the city intimately. Marcus sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. His comfortable, predictable world had been turned upside down, and he was beginning to understand that nothing he thought he knew about his life was completely true. "Tell me about my father," Marcus said finally. Alex glanced at him while maneuvering through a narrow alley. "Dr. James Chen. He worked with my father on the original artifact recovery project. According to the files my dad left me, Dr. Chen was one of the most brilliant theoretical physicists of his generation. He understood the mathematical principles behind the alien technology better than anyone else on the team." Marcus felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. His father had died when Marcus was 12 years old, supposedly in a car accident. Marcus had few clear memories of him, just impressions of a quiet man who spent long hours in his home office, working on projects he never discussed with his family. "That's impossible," Marcus protested. "My father was a college professor. He taught undergraduate physics at a small university. He wasn't involved in government research." "That was his cover story," Alex explained, turning onto a main highway that led out of the city. "The team members were given false backgrounds and identities to protect their families. Your father's academic position was real, but it was secondary to his classified work." They drove for another hour before Alex pulled off at a rest stop that looked abandoned. Behind the main building was a storage facility that seemed to be permanently closed, but Alex produced a key and led Marcus to a specific unit.
Inside, Marcus found a sophisticated laboratory that looked like it had been waiting for decades to be used again. "My father and yours worked together to create backup facilities like this one," Alex explained,
Turning on equipment that immediately began displaying complex data streams. They knew that eventually the government would either complete the project or try to eliminate everyone who knew about it. They prepared for both possibilities. Marcus explored the laboratory, finding documents and photographs that confirmed Alex's story. There were pictures of his father working alongside Dr. Rivera, examining artifacts that were clearly not of terrestrial origin. Technical documents bore his father's signature and handwriting, describing theoretical frameworks that Marcus recognized as decades ahead of their time. "Why didn't my father tell me any of this?" Marcus asked, holding a photograph of his father standing next to what appeared to be a partially assembled version of Project Prometheus. "Because he loved you," Alex said simply. "He wanted you to have a normal life, to build something positive and meaningful without the burden of carrying his secrets. But he also knew that someday you might be drawn into this world whether you wanted to be or not." Alex activated a computer terminal and began accessing files that had been hidden for 15 years. "Both of our fathers left us specific instructions about what to do if the project was ever revived. They knew that the artifacts were too dangerous to be used as weapons, but too important to be destroyed. They were looking for a third option." "What kind of third option?" Marcus asked. Instead of answering immediately, Alex opened a secured cabinet and withdrew a device that made Marcus gasp. It was clearly related to Project Prometheus, but smaller and more elegant. Unlike the crude industrial appearance of the government prototype, this device seemed to pulse with life and intelligence. "This is what the artifacts are really supposed to do," Alex explained. "Not communication, not navigation, not weapons. They're a gift. A way for civilizations that have transcended physical existence to share knowledge and wisdom with younger species that are ready to evolve." Marcus stared at the device, understanding beginning to dawn. "The aliens who left these artifacts, they're trying to help us grow beyond our current limitations. But the knowledge can only be received by minds that are ready for it. People who understand that true advancement comes through cooperation and wisdom, not domination and control." Alex handed the device to Marcus, and immediately the CEO felt a subtle shift in his consciousness. Information began flowing into his mind, not as words or images, but as pure understanding. He saw visions of civilizations across the galaxy that had received similar gifts, species that had used the knowledge to eliminate poverty, disease, and war, transforming their worlds into paradises of learning and growth. "This is what my father discovered," Alex continued. "The artifacts weren't meant to be reverse engineered by teams of scientists working for governments or corporations. They were meant to be activated by individuals who had evolved beyond the need to use knowledge as a weapon against others." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as the implications became clear. The technology he had been struggling to weaponize was actually an invitation to join a galactic community of enlightened beings. But that invitation could only be accepted by those who had proven they were ready to use such gifts responsibly. The government will never understand this, Marcus realized. They'll keep trying to turn it into a weapon until they either succeed or destroy themselves in the process. Alex nodded grimly. That's why our fathers tried to hide the crucial components. And that's why we need to make a choice now. Mr. Chen, we can complete their work and ensure that this technology is used as it was intended, or we can let it fall into the wrong hands and watch it become an instrument of destruction. Outside the storage facility, storm clouds were gathering, and Marcus could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The decision he made in the next few minutes would determine not just his own fate, but the future of human civilization itself. The device in Marcus's hands continued to pulse with otherworldly energy as more memories flooded back to him. Images of his father working late into the night, the mysterious phone calls, the way his mother would worry when Dr. Chen disappeared for weeks at a time on unexplained business trips. Marcus had always assumed his father was simply a dedicated teacher, but now he understood the truth was far more complex. Alex was monitoring multiple computer screens, tracking government communications and satellite imagery that showed their pursuers getting closer. The sophisticated equipment in the hidden laboratory was intercepting encrypted messages, revealing the massive scope of the operation that had been launched to recapture Project Prometheus. They're mobilizing everything, Alex reported. Military units, intelligence agencies, private contractors. They've declared this a matter of national security and given themselves authorization to use any means necessary. Marcus set down the alien device carefully, his mind still reeling from the visions it had shown him. Alex, there's something I need to understand. If our fathers knew this day would come, if they prepared all of this in advance, then they must have had a plan. What did they expect us to do? Alex pulled out his father's journal and opened it to a section marked with a red ribbon. They expected us to complete the work they started, not just activating individual artifacts, but connecting them into a network that spans the entire planet. Only then can the full gift be received and shared with all of humanity. The young man led Marcus to a wall-mounted display that showed a map of the world with dozens of marked locations. Each mark represented a hidden facility like the one they were currently in, places where components of the alien technology had been secretly stored and studied. There are 47 sites worldwide, Alex explained. Each one contains a piece of the puzzle, protected by people who were chosen and trained by the original research team. When all the pieces are connected simultaneously, they'll create a global consciousness network that can receive and distribute advanced knowledge to anyone ready to accept it. Marcus studied the map, recognizing some locations as major cities, others as remote areas he had never heard of. How many people know about this network? Maybe 200 scattered across 6 continents. Scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists. People who were selected not just for their intelligence, but for their wisdom and moral character. Your father and mine spent years identifying and recruiting individuals who could be trusted with this responsibility. The weight of this revelation was staggering. Marcus had built his entire identity around being a self-made man, someone who had achieved success through his own effort and determination. Now he was learning that his path had been influenced by forces he had never imagined, that his very existence was part of a plan conceived by his father decades before his birth. Why me? Marcus asked. If my father wanted me to have a normal life, why am I here now? Alex looked up from the computer screens, his young face showing compassion for Marcus's confusion. Because the network needs someone with your resources and connections to complete the final phase. The artifacts can only be fully activated by someone who has proven they can build something meaningful in the regular world, but who is also willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good of humanity. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the laboratory. Alex's fingers flew over the keyboard as he tried to understand what had triggered the security systems. They've found us, Alex announced, his voice tight with tension. Multiple vehicles approaching from all directions. We have maybe 10 minutes before they breach the facility. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. What do we do? Can we run again? No, Alex said firmly. This was always going to be the final stand. My father's instructions are clear. If we're discovered, we activate the network immediately, even if it's incomplete. Better to share partial knowledge with the world than let it all be destroyed or weaponized. Alex began rapidly entering commands into multiple computer terminals simultaneously. Around the world, Marcus realized, similar scenes were probably playing out as other guardians of the alien technology received emergency activation signals. "Marcus," Alex said, using his first name for the first time, "I need you to hold that device and maintain physical contact with it while I initiate the network connection. The process requires a conscious decision from someone who understands what we're offering to humanity. Are you ready to give up your old life permanently?" Marcus looked at the alien artifact in his hands, feeling its warmth and sensing the vast intelligence that seemed to exist within it. Outside, he could hear vehicles pulling up to the facility, voices shouting orders, the sound of equipment being moved into position for an assault. "If I do this, what happens to the world? What happens to people who aren't ready for this kind of knowledge?" "Nothing happens to them immediately," Alex explained while continuing his frantic work at the computers. "The network doesn't force knowledge on anyone. It simply makes advanced understanding available to those who seek it. People will learn and grow at their own pace, in their own time. But the option will always be there." Marcus closed his eyes and thought about his father, imagining the difficult choices Dr. Chen must have faced when he first discovered the true nature of the alien artifacts. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, and Marcus knew that in moments, armed agents would break down the doors and try to seize everything his father and Alex's father had worked to protect. "I understand now," Marcus said quietly. "My father didn't want me to have a normal life because normal was better. He wanted me to choose this path freely, without being forced into it by circumstances or family obligation." Alex nodded while making final adjustments to the network interface. "That's exactly right. The alien civilization that left these gifts understood that true evolution can only happen through conscious choice, not coercion. Every species that receives their technology has to decide for themselves whether they're ready to join the galactic community." Marcus gripped the artifact more tightly, feeling its energy begin to synchronize with his own heartbeat. "What will happen to us after we activate the network?" "I don't know," Alex admitted. "My father's notes suggest that the process fundamentally changes anyone who serves as a primary conduit. We might become something more than human, or we might simply cease to exist as individuals and become part of the collective consciousness we're creating." The sound of explosives being prepared outside made both young men realize their time was almost up. Marcus looked around the laboratory one final time, thinking about the life he was about to leave behind. His company, his wealth, his reputation, none of it would matter in a few minutes. But somehow that felt liberating rather than terrifying. "Alex, I need you to know something," Marcus said. "Before today, I thought success meant accumulating power and control over others. I built my entire identity around being superior to people who had less than me. But holding this device, seeing what our fathers really discovered, I understand now that true success means helping others discover their own potential." Alex smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from him. "That's why the network chose you, Marcus. Not because of what you built, but because of who you could become." The explosions began just as Alex initiated the final sequence. Around the world, 47 hidden facilities activated simultaneously, creating a web of energy that connected every continent and began transmitting the accumulated wisdom of an ancient alien civilization to anyone ready to receive it. Marcus felt the knowledge flowing through him like a river of pure understanding. Mathematics that could solve energy crisis, medical knowledge that could eliminate disease, philosophical insights that could end war and poverty. All of it became available to any human mind, sophisticated enough to accept it without trying to use it for selfish purposes. As government agents burst through the laboratory doors, Marcus and Alex stood together, their hands on the alien artifact, their consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of individual existence. The last thing Marcus saw with his human eyes was the expression of wonder on the face of the lead agent, a woman who had come to capture them but instead found herself receiving the first transmission of galactic wisdom that humanity had ever experienced. The network was active, the gift was delivered, and the future of human civilization had been forever changed by two young men who chose to sacrifice everything for the chance to help their species evolve beyond its current limitations. 6 months later, the world had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead agent who had burst into the underground laboratory that night, now served as the director of the Global Consciousness Integration Project, the government task force that had been created to weaponize alien technology had been transformed into an international organization dedicated to helping humanity adapt to its new reality. Marcus Chen and Alex Rivera had not died that night, but they had been fundamentally changed by their role as primary conduits for the network activation. They existed now as something between human and something greater, their consciousness distributed across the global network, while maintaining their individual personalities and memories. They could manifest physically when needed, but most of their existence took place in the realm of pure thought and energy. The alien artifacts had been moved from secret government facilities to public institutions around the world. Museums, universities, and research centers now housed the devices openly, allowing anyone to approach them and receive whatever knowledge they were ready to understand. The technology no longer seemed mysterious or threatening. It simply felt like a natural part of human advancement. Dr. Martinez stood in what had once been Marcus's corner office, now converted into a coordination center for the integration project. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the changes that had taken place in the city below. Crime rates had dropped by 90% as people discovered that cooperation and mutual support were more fulfilling than competition and conflict. Pollution levels were declining rapidly as new technologies became available to anyone who could understand and implement them responsibly. "Status report," she said to the air, knowing that Marcus and Alex were always monitoring the network's activities. Marcus's voice materialized around her, though she could see no physical form. "Integration is proceeding smoothly on all continents. We're seeing breakthrough developments in medicine, energy production, and environmental restoration. The key is that people are discovering these advances organically, through their own exploration and growth, rather than having them imposed from outside." "Any resistance from traditional power structures?" Dr. Martinez asked. Alex's voice joined the conversation. "Less than we expected. It turns out that most people in positions of authority are just as interested in genuine progress as everyone else. When you remove the scarcity mindset that drove competition for limited resources, cooperation becomes the obvious choice." Dr. Martinez smiled, remembering her own transformation from a hardened intelligence agent to someone genuinely committed to human advancement. The network had shown her that the qualities that made her effective at her old job, determination, strategic thinking, ability to coordinate complex operations, were exactly what was needed to help humanity navigate its transition to a more evolved state. "What about the concerns that some people raised about losing individual identity?" she asked. "Those concerns were based on misunderstanding," Marcus replied. "The network doesn't eliminate individuality, it enhances it. When you're not constantly worried about survival and competition, you're free to explore who you really are and what you're truly capable of achieving." Through the window, Dr. Martinez could see groups of people gathered around public access points to the network, sharing ideas and collaborating on projects that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Artists were creating works of unprecedented beauty and meaning. Scientists were solving problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries, and ordinary people were discovering extraordinary capabilities they never knew they possessed. "There's something I've been wondering about," Dr. Martinez said. "The alien civilization that left these gifts for us. Do we know anything more about them now?" Alex's presence seemed to shift, becoming more thoughtful. "We know they're ancient beyond our current ability to measure, and that they've helped hundreds of species make this same transition. They exist now as pure consciousness, having evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago, but they remember what it was like to be young and struggling, so they leave these gifts for civilizations that show promise." "Are we in contact with them directly?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Not yet," Marcus replied. "That level of communication requires humanity to develop further. But someday, probably within the next generation, we'll be ready for direct contact with the galactic community. When that happens, we'll discover that we're part of something much larger and more wonderful than we ever imagined." Dr. Martinez walked to the desk where Project Prometheus had once sat, now replaced by a simple crystal structure that served as a local network node. She placed her hand on its surface and immediately felt the familiar sensation of expanded consciousness, the sense that she was connected to every other awakened human being on the planet. "Marcus, Alex, I have one more question," she said. "Do you ever regret the choice you made that night? Giving up your individual human existence for this?" There was a moment of silence before both voices answered simultaneously. Never, they said. We didn't give up our humanity. We discovered what human beings are truly capable of becoming. And we get to watch every day as more people make that same discovery for themselves. As the sun set over the transformed city, Dr. Martinez felt a profound sense of gratitude for the events that had brought them to this point. The scared billionaire and the street-smart teenager who had activated the network had become something greater than either could have imagined. But in doing so, they had helped all of humanity begin its journey toward something greater as well. The alien gift had been received, understood and shared. The future was no longer something to fear, but something to embrace with wonder and excitement. And somewhere in the vast network of consciousness that now connected all awakened minds, Marcus Chen and Alex Rivera continued their work of helping their species take its first steps toward joining the community of evolved civilizations that waited among the stars. The story had ended, but the real adventure was just beginning.